And just looking at the landscape, oh my God, the Eastern Conference landscape keeps changing. As we see teams right now like the Philadelphia 76ers dealing with the Embiid injury, which is causing them to go down the standings. And the Cavaliers dealing with the injury early on in the month of January with Darius Garland. They kind of started to figure out a nice little formula that got them rolling with Donovan Mitchell, along with their role players who started to get more responsibility and started leveling up. Guys like Isaac Okoro, Strus, and Dean Wade. You see the Cavs, just like us in the month of January, they got cooking. They got cooking because they started kind of tweaking their lineups a little bit, and just them going into the month of February, it went as far as them even considering playing Evan Mobley for less time. They're actually willing to make that sacrifice so they can get the floor spacing and the three-point shooters out there. That's something that they've corrected from last season, and it's going to be one hell of a battle with us going up against them, especially if we're healthy in the playoffs. Because right now it looks like they're willing to sacrifice Evan Mobley, at least getting starter minutes, in order to space that floor a lot better and just not having teams leaving him open for three-point shots because they know he's not a threat. And the final thing with the Cavs, during the month of January when Darius Garland was out, they found out that one of their undrafted players, Craig Porter, was actually not bad. He started getting a lot of burn, and they found out real fast that he's a useful player in their rotation. So as we take a look at the landscape, I would say the Cavs are definitely trending up. And speaking about another team that's trending up, I would hate to say, man, these guys never die, is the Miami Heat, the cockroaches of the Eastern Conference. They are 8-2 in their last 10 games. And when they made that trade for Terry Rozier, they actually lost 7 games in a row. But it seems like Rozier kind of dialed back on that volume shooting. But I don't know if Pat Riley has a sweatshop in Miami, because of course they keep finding fucking guys. And I'm not talking about the new Spaniard rookie, Jamie Juarez. I'm not talking about him. I'm talking about Jovic. Where do the Heat keep finding these fucking players? All of a sudden he's shooting lights out. And at the same time, Duncan Robinson is now coming alive. And the Heat, with their constant off-ball movement, they create a lot of matchup issues, particularly from the Milwaukee Bucks. But once again, no matter where they fall in the conference, whether they're the 8th seed or they're the number 2 seed, they're going to be an issue in the playoffs. And before I get to the top dogs in the Eastern Conference, Boston Celtics, I'm going to jump right over to the Bucks. Let me just say this about the Bucks, because right now they're trying to figure shit out still, which is kind of scary because Giannis is a ball handler. Even though he's a big man, he's a ball handler, and Dame does not move off ball well. He's never really had to play that role throughout his whole career. Now, even with Doc Rivers there, the Bucks still going to have to hide a lot of their mishaps, especially with their transition defense. Remember, when the Knicks had played the Bucks in the knockout rounds of the in-season tournament, the Bucks shot really well from 3 historically. It was almost like a historical record. It's because of one of their players, I believe Robin Lopez, in garbage time, he chucked up a 3 and he messed up their record. They would have finished as a team having the number 1 3-point shooting percentage for an NBA game. But the Knicks were in that game to the very last minute, even though we couldn't make a 3 for our life. And the reason is because the Bucks give up too many transitional points. So Doc Rivers right now is trying his best to mask around some of their weak perimeter defenders, aka Damian Lillard and Beasley. But the Knicks at the time had no answers for guys like Chris Middleton, who was somehow blowing past RJ Barrett. Now we're going to have OG in there. We're going to have not only him and Randle having at least the size to somewhat stop Giannis. And also OG is going to be there to also spread the floor, allowing Brunson to take full advantage of that drop coverage that they love to play with Brook Lopez off that pick and roll. And the Bucks being a very top-heavy team, Doc Rivers still can't cover a lot of the flaws that they have. They don't have guys who like to rebound, and they also don't have enough shot creators and ball handlers. Guys off the pick and roll to make a move and go into the paint. Bobby Portis can't do that, and they don't really have other guys off the bench that can do the same, at least penetrate. So even though the Bucks have made strides going into the month of March, I still have them trending down, especially when you hear a coach say this about coming to your team.
Taking a job when you're about to go on the toughest road trip of the season is not the smartest decision. I even told them that, can we wait till All-Star break? You know, it would have been a lot nicer. So that in that way it's been harder. I mean, the fact, I've been in Milwaukee 4 days. You know, I've had the job for 3 weeks. So it's been difficult. It's been probably more difficult than I thought.
Yo, Doc Rivers went on more press runs than a rapper trying to get fucking streams for his album. It's almost like he was trying to find a way to cushion an excuse of why the team was kind of, in a way, trapped. It was never really going to be a good team. He could only mask around their problems for so long. Because that is the reality of that squad. They gave up so many draft assets throughout the years to get Jrue Holiday and to get Damian Lillard. And it's going to be very hard for them to pivot and add more players to that roster or even make trades and get other guys to come to the team, especially with the new CBA coming in, which is going to punish teams that are constructed the way theirs are, having 2 players getting paid $50 to $60 million. So I have the Bucks trending down. And if the Knicks are healthy, that's going to make a great matchup because Brunson now is going to have plenty of room to actually hunt Brook Lopez and get him in that pick and roll situation, especially on the weak side, having OG just sit in the corner and forcing the Bucks to make a decision. Either you're going to leave Brunson open for the mid-range or you're going to double team and thus he's going to kick it out to OG. This is a conundrum that did not exist before when RJ Barrett was on the team because he wasn't a threat from three-point range like that. But as we continue to look at the landscape of the Eastern Conference, the final team I wanted to cover here is the Boston Celtics. Of course, they're the top dogs of the East, but remember earlier I had stated that the trend of the league right now, especially the way the floor is spaced out, is that the mid-range shot today, at this very moment, comes a lot easier than the three-point shot. That's why you see guys like Julius Randle's having a hell of a season, even though his three-point attempts are way down, but yet his efficiency and his output is almost the same. That's because the floor is so spaced out, while at the same time the center is trying to avoid 3 seconds in the paint. So the middle is just wide open. But the Celtics are operating almost in reverse. 40% of their total shots is still from 3. So one of the flaws of this team is that when that three-point shot is not falling, sometimes they have no plan B. And it's played out quite a few times this season for the Celtics, especially when they go up against the top 5 teams in the league during crunch time. We seen Jason Tatum earlier this season in that overtime loss against the T-Wolves. He got stuck shooting threes. Same thing for the rest of the Celtics squad. And even in the recent months, in their loss against the Denver Nuggets, Oklahoma City Thunder, and Clippers. And a lot of this begins with their leader, Jason Tatum. Sometimes he gets stuck just shooting threes, even though we know he can attack the hoop. They get real comfortable with shooting threes. And sometimes if that shit's not falling, there is no plan B. Once again, they lead the league in the total number of their shots being three-point attempts. As Jrue Holiday and Kristaps Porzingis was added as an insurance policy to make sure that this team gets over the hump, which has always been a knock on the duo of Jason Tatum and Jalen Brown. One season they'll get to the Eastern Conference Finals, then the next season they'll get knocked out by the Toronto Raptors. Or they'll get to the NBA Finals and they get knocked out by the Miami Heat. It's always up and down with them, and they never tend to blow teams out. So this season is a little different for them. They got an insurance policy, a guy in Kristaps Porzingis who could actually post up and give them options down low, while at the same time having Jrue Holiday defensively and just another ball handler to get Jason Tatum and Jalen Brown the rock in their spots. So the Celtics definitely will be a tough matchup. Their only Achilles heel is that sometimes they get too comfortable with the three-point shot. And when it's not falling, once again, they tend to get robotic and stuck. So within the Eastern Conference, I have the set of teams I just went over in a tier. And the second tier below that, I have the 76ers, Orlando Magic, and Indiana Pacers. And the reason for that, because I believe these teams are always going to be up and down, and they don't have enough playoff experience. And the holes that they have on their teams tend to get exposed in the playoffs. For the Pacers, it's going to be the physicality. For the Orlando Magic, it's going to be the lack of shooting and not having a ball handler on the team. And for the 76ers, I believe Embiid is not going to be back in time. But we'll see, because if the Knicks don't get Randle and OG back and get enough games in, at least 2 weeks in, to gel, we might be swimming in that second tier, trying to survive, trying to get out of that, build up our momentum, to go battle the big dogs like Milwaukee, Cleveland, and the Celtics. But it's subject to change because injuries are part of the game. And who knows, maybe KP might go down for the Celtics and that'll change the whole dynamics of that team.